Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Dapo Adegboye. The top stories at this hour. The federal government of Nigeria denies signed Samoa deal is linked with the LGBTQ. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso irrevocably turned backs on ECOWAS. New UK Prime Minister not prepared to continue Rwanda asylum plan. Details in a moment. Let's begin by telling you that the federal government of Nigeria has maintained that the recently signed Samoa agreement is strictly for economic development of the country, contrary to widespread claims that it contains provisions for same-sex marriage. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, and the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Abubakar Bagudu, during a joint press briefing in Abuja on Saturday, clarified the content of the agreement.
Tinubu's government, and certainly in his directive to the ministry, did not authorize anything that is hurtful to our constitution, law, or sensitivities. We have not signed in the numerous cooperation agreements we have with different countries, US, through USAID, Japan, Korea, Asia, Latin America, and European countries. We have not signed anything that can undermine our constitution or laws, or have acquiesced to or agreed to any clause that are insensitive to our highly revered religious values.
Let's move to Rivers State, where the governor, Sim Fubara, has assured that his administration would not waver in its commitment to providing critical infrastructure as required for the speedy development of the state. He gave the assurance on Friday while speaking to newsmen shortly after he inspected the extent of reconstruction work done at the zonal hospital project at Bori Town, headquarters of Kana local government area. This is amidst the political tension rocking the state, where factional Speaker of the State House of Assembly, led by Victor Oko-Jumbo, has confirmed the filing of an appeal at the Supreme Court, challenging the judgment of the appeal court delivered on Wednesday in Port Harcourt in Rivers State capital.
You, every one of you, and the good people of Rivers State, that we are not deterred, we have made our promises. We will continue to give you good governance, no matter what it is. But like I said before, the worst is over. We are moving on to ensure that we continue to provide what is needed for the development of our state. So we're here to check what they're doing, because if you could remember, about a month ago, we did release money for the rehabilitation and expansion of 4 zonal hospitals and about one general hospital. So we're here to check. And let me say that I'm really impressed with what I've seen. The contractors are really committed. They understand the dream and aspiration of this administration, that we are people, when we make promises, we keep to up.
To discuss this, I'm joined by human rights lawyer Henry Akin. Thank you for joining me, Henry. Now, just a quick one, your reaction.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Your reaction to, of course, the latest development as regards the State House, where we know that an injunction came in and this has been challenged.
Rivers State, as one of the states in the Federation, and the people of Rivers State deserve development. So it's appropriate to hear that the government of Rivers State is embarking on some development projects in terms of the health sector and other sectors that require some attention. Apparently, the fundamental provision of the Constitution with respect to the purpose of government is to continually enhance the welfare of citizens, including provision of infrastructure. And essential to that is also the right of citizens to life, which by extension includes the right to health care. But the happenings in Rivers State lately actually in some form constitute some constraints, or if you like, distraction to focus on those primary purposes of government, which is to continually enhance the welfare of citizens and to ensure security of lives and property of citizens.
All right. Now, let's also look at the legal crossfire in all of this, where, of course, the court ruling had it that the House or members of the House who, of course, were told to leave their seats because, you know, of the whole tension in the state right now have been reinstated, and the current Okojombo, you know, faction, you know, having taken it to the Supreme Court. I'd like to know what exactly this portends, you know, for the political landscape of the state, and even in terms of legal interpretation, what this connotes.
Yeah, thank you. It appears that one would have to go back since the 11th of December 2023 to be able to give a clear perspective to one's response. Recall that on the floor of the House of the River State House of Assembly, as proceedings of the House of that day, on the 11th of December 2023, 27 members of that House, including Right Honorable Martin Amewule, who was the Speaker at the time, defected and clearly publicly announced their defection, declared their defection from the People's Democratic Party that sponsored them to that House. And then they also proclaimed their allegiance and membership of the All Progressives Congress. So that's precipitated the avoidable and unnecessary crisis that had gone on since October of last year, and then, of course, getting to that height in December. So that led to a lot of litigations in Rivers State, both in the State High Court and the Federal High Court. So the particular one that got to the Court of Appeal that was decided just a few days ago was an interlocutory injunction that was granted by the High Court of Rivers State, presided over by Honorable Justice Charles N. Wale. And that particular matter was the one that Right Honorable Victor Okojombo, who currently is the Speaker of the University House of Assembly, having been so elected by some members. So he approached that court on the argument that whilst he is the Speaker and then the other members of the House are carrying on legislative functions, that some other individuals who had ceased to be members of the House since December and their seats haven't been declared by the former Speaker, Edison Ehie, are parading themselves and continuing to hold themselves out, impersonating the members of the Rivers House of Assembly and even his position as Speaker. That's the substantive matter that was before C.N. Wale, and the substantive matter was still there while the interlocutory order was made. So dissatisfied, Martin Amewule and others appealed to the Court of Appeal that led to the decision on Thursday to the effect that the State High Court lacked the jurisdiction to even entertain that matter in the first instance, let alone the order that was made to restrain Martin Amewule and others to parade themselves as members of the University House of Assembly. But I think for me, the implication of that is clear that whatever proceeding that went on in that court, or even any other proceeding that is going on in any of the courts, the University High Court, I mean, with respect to this matter, will suffer the same fate as being a nullity for want of jurisdiction. But the matters that are subsisting before the Federal High Court, according to the decision of the Court of Appeal, that is the appropriate court. It means that those ones have life. And I would say here that Martin Amewule and the other members have a subsisting matter before the Federal High Court in Abuja. I think to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't been decided on the same subject, where they sought to protect their defection, claiming that their defection was appropriate and that their seat should not be declared vacant by INEC and the River State House of Assembly. Then back here in Port Harcourt, in the Federal High Court, there are two subsisting matters to the best of my knowledge, or at least I know, one by a political party and another one by the civil society organizations here on the same issue of vacation of the seats. So when Victor Okojombo, I understand, has approached or directed his lawyers to approach the Supreme Court to appeal against the decision of the Court of Appeal.
All right. Just before I let you go, many are beginning to actually ask if at all of this legal crossfire sort of impacts on the judiciary negatively? Now, this is beyond even the River State case. I mean, cases where we see the judiciary being a sort of pawn in the game of politicians, where they just get injunctions here and there. Do you think all of this is impacting on the integrity of our judicial system?
Yes, in some form, arguably. Then I think another regard will be where one would expect the judiciary to act promptly. Now, there are speculations, but not from me. Of course, I think as a lawyer, it has to be a matter of fact and with evidence for one to conclude whether any judicial officer is perverse or has been influenced otherwise. But I think that we have to have a judicial system or the judiciary that should be active and upright and prompt. Take, for instance, if the federal high courts, not just the one in Abuja, including those in Port Harcourt, had been prompt in this regard, I think we would have got to some form of conclusion on some of these matters that were originated by way of originating someone, which is affidavit evidence. But we had a situation where we've had adjournments and processes are being filed, though not just the problem of the court, but also lawyers. Because I do understand that every adjourned date, you would have either a political party, the All Progressive Congress, or the People's Democratic Party filing application for joinder. But the court has the power to abridge time. The court has the power to declare an end to filing of processes in this matter. So they quickly determine this and let us know the fate of those 27 former members of the House. Then again, the judiciary, I think, will have to also understand that the society expects a whole lot from the judiciary in consolidating democracy. And they live in this society. So it is a time that I think we need to have pragmatic judges showing judicial activism, not distancing themselves from the realities in society. To the extent that you hear a judge will expand the scope of defection to defeat the purpose of the Constitution, particularly with respect to Section 109, subsection 1, paragraph G. And the clear, I think, the intention of the drafters of the Constitution there is that if you did declare that you are no longer a member of the political party that sponsored you to a legislative house, your seat is vacant, except if the presiding officer fails to so declare. But in this case where the presiding officer has so declared, I think we should respect the law.
All right.
So there is threat to the rule of law, there is threat to democracy, and the judiciary really has to be upright here and firm, and judges have to really be pragmatic and judicial activism to the extent that you make the pronouncements stern and send the signals to politicians that the judiciary is up and strong to be firm in these decisions, not to create all the loopholes. And of course, if you like, the lacuna and then the opportunities for politicians to leverage on and continue to perpetuate matters that are in court that could simply be expeditiously determined, especially when they pertain to democracy and then the interest of people.
Akin, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but we just need to go. Thank you for your time on the news. All right.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always on your platform.
Okay. At this point, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. As Delta State gears up for the local government elections, Governor Sheriff Oborevwori has assured residents of free, fair and credible process, urging politicians to adhere to the rules. Meanwhile, the State Electoral Commission held a parley with members of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Asaba, the state's capital. News Central's Austin Azu completes the report.
A week to the local government elections in Delta State, political parties have intensified campaigns across 25 local government areas of the state. However, the state's electoral umpire is leaving no stone unturned to conduct acceptable polls as it continues its sensitization and meeting various stakeholders across the state. The Commission is here at the NUJ House, Asaba, to interface with a cross-section of the media in the state ahead of the polls.
So this workshop has been put in place to encourage correct reportage of elections so that the public is not misinformed about the conduct of the elections.
Our members need to be attuned with the trends and the laws to be guided so that they will be able to carry out their traditional function of unbiased reporting, objective reporting. They are the eyes of the society, and we need them to be conscious of this when they cover elections.
Secondly, we need to make sure that nobody is compromised in the election. We need to be active in our job to make sure that everything, the policemen, the security men, they are there at the polling units to make sure that everything is ready. And the election time, they start immediately, the materials are provided.
Also concerned about a peaceful poll is the state governor, Sheriff Oborevwori, has warned politicians to be tolerant of all divergent views, no matter the opposition.
This local government election, I'm telling all the candidates, not only in PDP, that it's going to be free, fair election. So if you think you just have, because it's a local government election, you are making a very big mistake. Do your campaigns very well, and the elections will be properly monitored. Because I believe in democracy.
The local government elections are bid to take place on Saturday, July 13th across the 25 local government areas in Delta State. In Delta, for News Central, Austin Azu.
That the United Nations has once again forecasted that by 2030, 82 million Nigerians, that is approximately about 64% of the country's population, could face hunger. The organization urges the government to address climate change, pest infestation, and other threats to agricultural productivity. This warning follows a continual rise in food prices across the nation. The National Bureau of Statistics reports that in May 2024, the nation's food inflation rate reached a historic high of 40.66%, surpassing April's rate of 40.53%. This marks the most significant annual increase in food prices since record-keeping began in 1996. Joining me on the news to discuss this is Public Affairs Analyst Theophilus Akatugba. Thank you for your time, Theophilus. Now, let's get straight to it. The United Nations says that by 2030, 82 million Nigerians, that is approximately 64% of the country's population, could face hunger. What do you make of this report, given the fact that to some experts, particularly when it comes to African countries, they see reports like this as more of doomsday calling?
Well, the reality is that Nigeria is producing less food with a growing population. We are saying that Nigerian population is growing, but the food that we produce continue to reduce due to first government misplanning over the years. It's been a wrong step, always in the wrong place. For example, the country has a very high rural to urban migration. Now, this, agriculture is better done and mostly done in the rural areas. If those who are involved in farming are not able to make a living farming, they will abandon farming and look for other white-collar jobs. That, I think, has been one of the big factors responsible. Then again, you have to look at insecurity that has bedeviled enough the food basket of the country. Just at the time that President Buhari said we should grow our food, farm attacks and all that intensified as if there is a certain orchestration against the country. The anchor borrowers program also did not yield any fruit because those who got the money thought that it was their share of the national cake, and many people who indeed are not actual farmers got those monies. And today, some of those monies did not produce the desired result in food sufficiency or in bumper harvest or more food supplied to the market. So the United Nations has seen it clearly. It is a shame for a country, very vast arable land, to be recorded as a country where majority of the citizens will go into hunger. A good time, a good warning. I hope government will be proactive and act expeditiously to improve the situation.
Now, Theophilus, let's look at some of the issues outlined here. I mean, in that particular warning, it talked about climate change, pest infestation, amongst, a plethora of issues. We know that one of such many issues has to do with insecurity. My question to you is this. Do you think that the government is actually, this particular administration, that is doing what it needs to do to ensure that farmers go back to their farms and so, in a way, expand the scale of production?
Yes, I see the activities, I see the plans, I've seen the economic blueprint. Yes, that is why I said that these activities should not be politicized. You do not have to use it as a reward for political food soldiers. It's got to be a national program, an emergency for food production. Because in time past, a lot of government activities have been directed and then at political food soldiers using political channels. This does not result in the desired result. Food is critical to national security. Well, what we're having now is risky, it's dangerous. People are dying daily out of starvation and hunger. And many families cannot afford food because most of their income now goes for food. This is dangerous and it's an emergency that needs to be addressed. And I think government needs to act fast by importing food temporarily until we're able to improve the situation at home.
I mean, that's a big one there. You talk about importation of food temporarily, maybe, of course, putting policies in that direction, but I'll come to that. My next question to you is this. Let's talk about another pivotal issue, which has to do with the cost of transportation. We know of the issue of food shortage. Now, let's look at the aspect of availability. Many traders or many people who deal in, perishables, talking about food, pepper, tomatoes and the likes, onions, they bring it from the north down here to the south. Quite a number of them have complained of the cost of transportation. Hence, the reason you see the surge in prices. Do you think that enough is being done to address the cost of transporting these items? I mean, given the current reality of the pump price.
Not at all. Like I said, a state of emergency declared. We've got to evacuate food from wherever they are to where they are needed with massive rail transportation. Wherever the rail lines that have gone to the north have to be utilized. We've got to abandon road transportation for this particular emergency response. Because the roads and the various police, you see, transportation is expensive in Nigeria because of the activities of government agencies like the police and all of those people who pounce on vehicles that are carrying goods. Sometimes they expose them to unnecessary delays, leading to the perishing of these food items. There must be a decision that food carrying trucks must be allowed free flow of movement. This is an emergency and it's got to be treated as such. Nigeria is facing a war in terms of food sufficiency, and it has to be treated with alacrity.
All right, Theophilus, 30 seconds, my final question. The issue of GMO also, that's genetically modified, food items, which have been some sort of a front burner conversation in recent times. You talked about importing food. What's your take on GMOs?
My take is that it's something Nigeria should avoid. GMO is attractive. It's a quick response to food shortage, but it doesn't seem to have a kind of sustainability, and there could be health effects. I do not have the details, but I can assure you, any seedling that after it has been planted and you have harvested corn, from report that we have read, you cannot replant those ones. And again, GMO products, they decay and they perish very quickly, and their storage capacity to store them doesn't go. Is able to produce organic food and produce it in abundance. Government need to deal with insecurity very massively, and then create opportunity for rural folks to remain in rural areas to make food so that they also get reward in their farming effort. That way, you will get more people into agriculture, and people who produce agricultural produce will get good reward, for their efforts and their time.
All right, Theophilus Akatuba, thank you for your time on the news.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Now, Nigeria's National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies has emphasized the need for continuous training of legislative staff to enhance their capacity to contribute to democratic governance. This was made known during the ongoing retreat for staff of the Niger State House of Assembly Service Commission. News Central's Idong Joseph has more.
Since the return of democratic rule in 1999, the legislature, as the hallmark of Nigeria's democracy, has helped to chart the course for good governance and accountability. For the legislature to perform its constitutional roles effectively and efficiently, there is a need for a competent and experienced workforce to support it.
Apart from being saddled with the responsibility of recruitment of staff, selections and promotion, discipline and performance evaluation of the staff of the legislature at subnational level, our Assembly Service Commission also plays a crucial role in the general condition of service, career progression, and providing a conducive environment for the effective administrative functioning of the legislature in our country.
For this purpose, staff of the Niger State House of Assembly Commission are being exposed to the necessary leadership skills required to carry out their role of managing the human resource of the Assembly for optimum performance.
In our fulfillment of our mandate as the only statutory capacity building institution for the Nigerian legislature, and by extension in the ECOWAS sub-region, and as a driver of democratic excellence in Nigeria, deem it fit to organize this capacity building workshop for the chairman, members, and other key staff of the Niger State House of Assembly Service Commission.
DG sir, I want you to emphasize in the course of this retreat on the need for synergy. The Assembly Service Commission and the House of Assembly is one and the same. We're a bird of the same feather, we flock together. You can only be a success if you're carrying us along. We can be a success too if we're carrying along.
While elected legislators at the state and national level are saddled with the responsibility of lawmaking, oversight, and representation, it is believed that these functions cannot be carried out effectively without the support of legislative staff. And so it is believed that events like this will help Assembly staff with the right knowledge to discharge their responsibility. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Moving away from that, some pro-EFCC groups converged on the headquarters of the anti-graft agency in Abuja as part of efforts to show their support for the war against graft. Now, this was in reaction to a planned protest by some other groups which are accusing the Commission of misconduct and targeting youths in its war against corruption. News Central's Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
These are different civil society groups with different inscriptions at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Abuja. The groups converge on the Commission's headquarters to show their support for the war against graft. These are a group of civil society organizations gathered here at the EFCC headquarters to urge the EFCC chairman to do more in the fight against corruption. They are also here to stand in solidarity with the good work the EFCC is doing and to urge him to do more.
We commend the positive leadership qualities of the EFCC, and we implore the EFCC chairman not to be distracted by this unscrupulous element.
It's a national embarrassment that after the fantastic job that is being done by EFCC to global acclaim, that anybody out of any sort of desperation, can contemplate saying that they want to demonstrate against EFCC. Corruption is what robs us of the jobs that we should have, because one individual will take wealth so byzantinely and stupendously that he does not even need for 10 generations. Bury them. We don't even know. There are destinations where our currency, real currency, have been buried, and people cannot even trace it.
They say the Commission's fight against corruption is beginning to yield positive results and urge the leadership of the Commission to shun those opposed to their efforts.
It is unfortunate that some unscrupulous elements that are being sponsored by Yahoo boys, criminals, criminal politicians who have issues with the EFCC are sponsoring some irresponsible people in the society to be launching a campaign of calumny against the EFCC.
It beats our imagination for any reasonable Nigeria to ever have the thought to think that a group of individuals can come up with an idea for EFCC to be scrapped. All the good things that EFCC is doing and how EFCC has portrayed Nigeria before the international community, all those criminal elements still have the guts to call for the scrap of EFCC. We are saying sorry to them.
The Director of Public Affairs of the Anti-Graft Agency, while receiving their letter from the group, commended them for their efforts, saying the Commission will not relent in its efforts.
What EFCC is working at in Nigeria is to secure the future of Nigerian youths. I'm sure all of us who are present here cannot imagine how our country would be without the EFCC. Every day we are making sacrifice to ensure that the wealth of this country is not siphoned by a few individuals.
Although the protests against the Commission did not hold as widely publicized, it is hoped that it will serve as a wake-up call to the Anti-Graft Agency to ensure it carries out its duties by the books. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
News Central Television received an award of excellence for its commitment to excellence in journalism and its support for women in law enforcement at the International Association of Women in Police in Africa Training Conference. The award was presented by Nigeria's Inspector General of Police, Adegboye, and received by the Managing Director of News Central Television, Akin, in Abuja, the nation's capital. Now, News Central's Joshua Imarai has more.
The closing ceremony of the training conference by the International Association of Women in Police in Africa, the gathering the largest convergence of female law enforcement officers in Africa, with female police officers attending from over 18 countries. Guest speakers expressed their optimism over the state of security on the continent, saying with female police officers determined to make a difference, much can be achieved.
Believe you me, there's going to be a total change, because we brought in the private sector, not just the police, private sector and the military sector together to make sure that this program is a huge success. So definitely the impact, the testimonials are already coming already. And we know that Africa will not remain the same.
So there's been a mind shift, a kind of a mind surgery. And the women are going back to their stations empowered. They're going back to their different stations trained. They go back to different stations filled with gumption and filled with that impetus to attain great heights in their different countries.
They say that female law enforcement officers on the continent will gain inspirations and valuable insights from the conference, enabling them to make a positive impact in their respective countries.
You have engaged in fruitful discussions. You have learned from each other's experiences. You have shared best practices. We have affirmed our commitment to promoting gender equality and empowering women in law enforcement.
I see the women, the women in the police force. There's a lot of cooperation. There's a lot of knowledge sharing they have. And, it's just going to make them stronger. It's going to make them more excited about what they do. And it's just going to foster a lot of international relationship.
News Central Television was also presented with a prestigious award of excellence by Nigeria's Inspector General of Police for its partnership with the association, which seeks to transform security and policing on the continent.
So this is one of the areas of our passion, and that's why we're supporting. We will be there at News Central, giving 100% support to the women police officers in Nigeria, because they're doing an amazing job. We're proud of them, and we're thankful to God for the work that they're doing.
The conference, which lasted 4 days, focused on several thematic areas, which build the capacity of female law enforcement officers on the continent. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Coming up on the news, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso irrevocably turned backs on ECOWAS. We have details of this and more after now. Niger's military leader, General Abdurrahman Chiani, on Saturday said that the people of his country, along with neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso, have irrevocably turned their backs on the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS. The comments came at the first summit of the Alliance of Sahel States, which coup hit Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso set up after pulling out of ECOWAS earlier this year. The three countries accuse ECOWAS of being manipulated by former colonial ruler France, with Gianni calling for a new bloc to become a community far removed from the stronghold of foreign powers. The military leaders have all sought to reject Paris influence, expelling anti-jihadist French troops and turning instead towards what they call sincere partners, which are Russia, Turkey, and Iran. In North Africa, femicide and domestic violence against women in North Africa are increasingly reported online by some media, but right groups say legal measures to protect the victims are still lacking. According to watchdog Femicide's Algeria, which has been documenting murder since 2019, at least one woman is killed each week in Algeria. The NGOs Aswad Nisa and Manasra say in Tunisia, femicide rates quadrupled between 2018 and 2023, reaching 25 murders compared to 6 in 2018. Let's move to East Africa, where the new UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, says he is not prepared to continue with the Rwanda deportation plan of his conservative predecessors. Speaking the day after his Labour Party secured a landslide election victory, Starmer says the plan was never a deterrent, almost the opposite.
Look, the Rwanda scheme was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent. Look at the numbers that have come over in the first 6 and a bit months of this year. They're record numbers. That is the problem that we are inheriting. It has never acted as a deterrent, almost the opposite, because everybody has worked out, particularly the gangs that run this, that the chance of ever going to Rwanda was so slim, less than 1%. That it was never a deterrent. The chances were of not going and not being processed and staying here, therefore, in paid-for accommodation for a very, very long time. It's had the complete opposite effect. And I'm not prepared to continue with gimmicks that don't act as a deterrent.
A leader in Ethiopia's northwest region, Amara, where an armed insurrection took place for more than a year, has been shot dead by extremist entities. The Amara Media Corporation described the militias as Fano, the second largest of Ethiopia's 80 or so ethno-linguistic communities, which took up arms in April 2023 against the federal government and the regional authorities. The local leader's death comes a month after the expiry of the state of emergency proclaimed last August in a so far unsuccessful attempt to quell the Fano insurrection in Amara. U.S. President Joe Biden insists that no one is more qualified to lead the nation or defeat Donald Trump than he is, swatting away concerns over whether he can beat the Republican challenger in November. Biden made this known in his first televised interview since his disastrous debate performance, which, when asked if staying in the race against Trump might jeopardize Democrats holding on to the White House.
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me. I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. You know, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with the Prime Minister of, anyway, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to, in Europe, with regard to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. I mean, every day, there's no day I go through, there are not those decisions I have to make.
Let's move to sports. Ahead of the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France, the World Athletics has confirmed the participating teams for the 4x400-meter relays. The World Athletics body on Saturday listed 16 top countries, including Team Nigeria, that have qualified for the Games. After missing several opportunities, Team Nigeria eventually picked the ticket to the 2024 African Athletics Championship in Douala, Cameroon. The list consists of the United States, Ireland, Norway, Belgium, and Poland, amongst others. The Olympics is slated to be held from July 27th to August 11th, 2024 in Paris, France. Staying in the world of sports, the World Anti-Doping Agency has with immediate effect removed the National Olympic Committee of Angola, acting as the National Anti-Doping Organization, NADO, from the list of signatories that do not comply with the World Anti-Doping Code. The National Olympic Committee of Angola's non-compliance was the result of its failure to fully implement the 2021 version of the World Anti-Doping Code into the national legal system. On the 23rd of January 2024, the World Anti-Doping Association, WADA, sent the NOC of Angola a formal notice of non-compliance. This non-compliance became effective on the 14th of February 2024 after the NOC of Angola chose not to contest the allegation, as it could have done under Article 931 of the International Standard for Code Compliance by signatories. Subsequently, WADA ruled that Angola could not use national symbols such as the anthem and flag due to delays in the approval of the country's anti-doping law. Leicester City have signed Jamaican forward Bobby de Cordova-Reid on a free transfer from Fulham. Both Premier League clubs confirmed on Saturday. The 31-year-old recently returned from participating in Copa America after Jamaica were knocked out in the group stage and has signed a 3-year contract with newly promoted Leicester. Leicester will begin their Premier League campaign with a home match against Tottenham Hotspur on August 19th. Mercedes driver George Russell has claimed pole position at the British Grand Prix with his teammate Lewis Hamilton sharing the front row ahead of Sunday's race at Silverstone. Russell won last time out in Austria, and Hamilton became the first British duo to front the grid in their home race since 1968. Another British driver, Lando Norris, took third in his McLaren, with Max Verstappen taking fourth after damaging the floor of his Red Bull during the wet-dry season. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Nigeria's federal government has denied signatories or signed the Samoa deal to linked with LGBTQ. And also we told you that Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso have irrevocably turned their backs on ECOWAS. And finally, we also told you that the new UK Prime Minister is not prepared to continue Rwanda asylum plan. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us across social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422 Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dapo Adegboye. See you soon.